CKGSB, China's only not-for-profit independent business school.
Darwin said about evolution that he said it's not teleological, it doesn't seek particular goals, it's just the people who happen to be better, the organisms that are best placed are those that survive. So it's very easy to sit and do the job I do and say and take all the credit for that, but actually when a lot of our success has come from things that are innate in the DNA of the economist. So the very first article ever written in The Economist in 1843 was an article about Brazil, and but back in 1843 no one was very interested. So the circulation back then was incredibly small. So you say how have we remained relevant, but actually I think what's happened is we've become relevant. That it isn't that The Economist has changed to become something different. The things that The Economist has always talked about, issues around globalization, issues around the interweaving of politics and economics and innovation and science and technology and social trends and all those things, and The Economist is all about those connections. Those things we've always done, and then the world has kind of moved in our direction, and that's why we are relevant. I don't think that we've sat there and sort of said, okay, this is what's happening in the world and this is what we need to do to become relevant. Reading is fundamentally a lean back experience. It's something where you physically lean back, you spend a lot more time, it's immersive, you exclude distractions and you concentrate on this thing in front of you. Often we're finding that people who are reading our digital editions are actually reading it for if anything longer than they're reading print. In the case of the web, however, that's much more a lean forward experience. It's one where it's much more interactive. People are coming not just to hear what we have to say, but to meet each other, to share, to participate, to discuss, to debate. It's a much more interactive experience. But print actually remains something that young people enjoy. Actually, for young people brought up in a digital environment, they actually find print a bit of a treat. It's still something that they go back to. So whereas if you'd asked me a couple of years ago before I had the data, how long do I think print has, I'd probably have given you a slightly shorter, perhaps a somewhat shorter time span than I would today, where there does seem to be, even when there are choices, there does seem to be a distinct need and a distinct joy that people get out of the printed word. For us, I think it was a recognition that our readers have something powerful to say in their own right, and that they are perhaps not quite as interested, but sort of cumulatively, in aggregate, as interested in what each other have to say as they are in what we have to say. And therefore, I think the reason why it was a little bit easier for us is because our audience is so extraordinary. So actually, the audience is a meeting of peers. It's not where we sit on Mount Olympus and sort of and give out all these wonderful words of wisdom and everyone at the bottom listens. I think we've always recognised that our audience are themselves incredibly well-read, travelled, experienced people, and actually to have an opportunity where they can communicate with each other and with us, that was always a natural place for us to play. The realization that came more than 10 years ago that actually The Economist, as it stands as a magazine, doesn't really work on the web if you just tried to port it. And yet, your point about, I don't think it is an anomaly, but the success of The Economist, the continued success of The Economist as a magazine, we realized even before, as I say, Kindle or iPad came along, we realized that it was meeting a need. Our demographic was getting, our audience was getting younger year by year. And yet, the web was taking off and everyone was saying, digital is the future. So we realized that there was something about what The Economist did which wasn't about, the medium that it was in, or wasn't overtaken by the web. As soon then, and we'd already identified, even before these digital devices digital reading devices came along, we'd already identified that there was this special place for reading in people's lives. And then as soon as we saw, in the first case in 2008, the Kindle, and then subsequently the iPad, in both cases, we immediately saw them as devices that would allow this state of mind and this kind of mental pleasure that people get could be accomplished in a digital way. So in a way, it wasn't that we had a great realization about lean back after these devices came about. We'd already realized there was this distinction between lean back and lean forward, but originally it was between print and web, and then we realized that this 2.0, this new kind of lean back that was coming about through digital media. We've always recognized that The Economist has the potential to be very valuable to people, and we've always recognised that in order to invest in quality journalism we needed to have a business model that's sustained. We are a private company, we don't have easy access to equity markets, we don't have some rich owner who is subsidising one part of the empire with another part of the empire. You know, some of the ways in which media works in other companies. So we've always had to make a living, and for us, realising and recognising that we have to deliver something that's of value to people and then charging them for it, that's always seemed a much more straightforward model to us than some of these more convoluted ways that people have of making money. So it isn't that we've discovered subscriptions as some others have started to do, we've always been that way. If a company has been dependent historically on advertising for their profitability in a digital world, an online world in particular, that is very, very difficult because there just isn't the profit to be made by publishers compared with others in the online world. So I think it's about two things. One is about going even more strongly on the subscription side. Secondly, to make sure that you capitalise on as much digital advertising as you can. Thirdly, that you remain, whilst you continue to have a viable, successful, thriving print product, that you continue to get as much of that as you can, but also recognising also the way in which clients are looking to reach audiences is shifting, and making sure that you as a publisher provide the products and services that those clients need to be able to engage with audiences in new ways around content marketing and other new, more innovative ways of marketing alongside advertising. Solo mo, you know, this idea of social, local and mobile. And I think what hasn't yet happened is that people have yet innovated in ways in which really take those three things and create something that is truly a media or a news media experience. We're beginning to see, you know, in Twitter, we're beginning to see in some of the stories as they break, different ways in which the news is being gathered and disseminated. But no one has yet turned that into a competitor for mainstream media permanently. Will be over a particular event. If somebody cracks that, I think that will be a huge disruption.